Alright, so here is my code. I decided to do a tic-tac-toe but in a GUI, or a GUI, graphical user interface. So instead of command lines, it's buttons. You can click buttons and it all works. That's fantastic. I just lost, but whatever. First thing is that we're going to import the needed modules. So I need random in case the computer can't decide to make a move to just pick a random spot. I have date time for when the game is recorded. I can basically get the day and the time that it was made. OS is used for, towards the end of the code, I actually have a function called game record that will record all the spots in text and then put it out to a text file in a folder called game recordings. Um, Here I had a little bit of a glitch because technically if I do from tkinter import asterisks, that should import everything, but for some reason it wasn't importing message box, so that's why I put that back in there, which seemed to work. That's just for like the you have lost, you have won, or it is a tie. So we close that. So right here, first off, we're gonna make a window and we're gonna just call it window and use the T. We're gonna call tkinter here. The title of it will just be tic-tac-toe. So when I run it right here, I'll just spread it out. The window's a little small for it, but tic-tac-toe. Um, we have a variable called click. This is to determine if it is my move or the computer's move. So true is me, false is computer. And then I have a plays variable that is global because it's used in a few different functions. For here, it's used to detect a tie. So I can only run 5 moves. Well, here I would have won, but he would have gone here or here, and then I would have had one more move left. So when this hits 5, it is considered a tie. The board is to be considered full. Here I am calling. It's the same for these 9, but I'll just do this one here. So first off, I'm gonna just get a button called the button function from tkinter, and then I'm gonna put it inside window, which is my game basically. It's gonna start blank. The fonts, this should be pretty obvious. It's just choosing a font and its font size. Background will be the sitting position essentially. So when well, I just did debug, but I don't really want to do that. So the background's white. When you click it, I'm just confused myself. Yeah, when you click it, you just click it in, and then the foreground is technically the text. So the foreground will be black. Then it's just the height and width, just how big are these items. The command lambda, I'm using that to point to a function called player move, where if this button is clicked, do player move, and then bring button 1 as a parameter. And the same goes for all of these. The only difference is the row and column that is put in. So where is it on the board? Create a list called buttons, just so this is all on a list for later when we just refer to something as buttons to bring all the buttons with it. The game will always start on me. This is my move, technically. We're going to call in plays and click because we're going to add one to plays here. This is where I make my 5 moves, and then it's called a tie. Click we're called in because we need that for basically determining that it's my move. I have a print player move here, kind of like a diagnostic, just to make sure I hit it. You can actually see it's used down here as well after the computer ran through 3 checks. And then also I had this I'm probably just going to comment out later because this was just another diagnostic. I used that to determine how many plays were needed. And basically this says whatever I click, whatever button I click, and its text is blank, and it is my turn. First off, print the diagnostic. Change that button to X. Set it to false if not it's a computer's move. Add 1 to plays, and then go down to win check, which I'll get to later because we're doing line by line. This will run every time, basically to see if I have 3 in a row in any way. Actually, I'll just jump to it there because then it brings me to comp row. So I go from player move to win check, where win check is this big if or statement. right here. So it'll go through all of these. You know, if 1, 2, or 3 is all X, I win. 4, 5, 6, etc. So it's just row, row, row. You actually have it here: row 1, 2, 3, column 1, 2, 3, and diagonals 1 and 2, because you can only do two diagonals. If any of these match, go to the player that wins function where it displays that you have one screen. If none of these match, check if it is a tie. So if players is 5, we're going to make a function, not a function, a variable called winner, and that is used for printing to the text file. Show a box saying it's a tie, and then game record. So take winner, put it in game record, and then I'll get to this later. But that function is saying no one won, and you'll see that in a bit. Next, if the click is false, go to the computer. And then I just added this in case something errored out to bring it back to me. I mean, it's not really the best. I could have just made comp row the else, but I found every once in a while that it would actually kind of hang. And I mean, this is where I'd make 2 moves. This is probably my... Didn't mean to do that. It's probably my error. I'm going to play with it in a little bit. Right now I'm just running through the code. See if that actually solves it. But anyways, now we're going to the computer because I just clicked. So we go all the way up here to comp row, which again, call in buttons, print the row saying we're doing a row check now. It's just a diagnostic. Take the click, set my click to true, so when the computer is done and it turns to my turn, I can actually click. Create lists for what buttons are what. So row 1's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, etc. And then I have the counts. So these are to determine whether to win or block. So for example, and I can actually run a debug. I won't do it this second, but I can actually show you how this is actually working. So it starts here and just says for whatever button here. So there's 3 objects I need to check. If its text is X, add 1 to row count X. And I can actually show you all this in action and debug, but if it is not X, and it's O, add 1 to O. So it'll run these 3 for the 3 buttons. So it'll get a count of what's what, and then it'll compare. So if row 1 for me is 0, but for the computer it's 2. So that could be either, 1, 2, 2, 3, 1, 3. If any of those are an O, pick the one that is blank here, place the O, and then that means the computer wins because now they have, 3 in a row. So that is the winning move because you'd obviously would want to win before you want to block. Now for this one, this Elphys right here, is the blocking move. So essentially is am I already there for 2, but the computer is not? Block me. So whatever button I didn't click, but it's in my row, block it. And then just print block as a diagnostic. And then we just hit break so that we can move out of this for loop and go to my move. The rest of this, the whole computer is essentially the same. For me to go through it would be kind of redundant, like in the way I did. I'll go a little faster, but because really just these change. This is really the only thing that changes in the other loops. So, well, and the names of these variables as well. So that's the loop through it. Should I win? Should I lose? Or should I block? If I blocked, go back to his move. And then I had to do return because I was just having some issues here. I can't remember exactly why, but I just left it there because it doesn't seem to break anything. If none of these parameters meet, so there's no point in winning, there's no point in blocking, pass, and go to row 2, which repeats the same thing. So check row 2, so buttons 4, 5, 6. Are they X? If they're X, add 1 to row 2, count X. If they're O, add to row 2, count O. Same thing, determine to win, which is I'm not there, but he's already there twice. Put the O where it's blank, he wins. Right here, if I'm already there twice, but there's a blank spot, put an O there. And if the text is blank, put the O and block me. Again, break, go back to my move. Otherwise, nothing in this area meets. Pass, go to row 3. Same thing. Loop through 3, 7, 8, 9. Is it X? Is it O? Add one to either, depending on what it is. Different variables. So now it's row 3. Loop for a winning move. If it's blank, put the O, they win. If it's a blocking move, if it's blank, put the O and block me if I'm already there twice. And then back to me. Otherwise, move on to columns. So what happens, essentially, that's my screen recorder. The computer will check 1, 2, 3, see what's here. If there's 2 O's, block me. And actually, I can demonstrate this too in a second. And then it'll check columns. So if there's 2 there, block me. And then it checks diagonals. If there's 2, block me or win. It's for all of them, it's block or win, but you start with the win first. So for example, none of those parameters met. So I went and checked everything. Nothing met. So I went to random choice and just decided to pick 1. But if I pick button 5, wow, the only time I demonstrate that, it doesn't block me. So like I said, there's still some buggy problems about it, but it should block me on 3. Yeah, there you go. So now it just blocked me on 3, which is good. You can actually see here, so it checked rows. I didn't match any rows. I didn't match any, well, I should have hit on columns, so I'm clearly having a problem with column 2, which I'll have to look into. Again, I'll have to double check it. Hopefully by the time that I post this code, it'll actually be in a better working condition. But I know that's a definite issue, which I'm going to be putting in the text file. From there, like I said, checks the columns, give me a column print, so I know that we're checking that. And the name of the variables changed, so now instead of row, it's column. And then I aligned the buttons in columns. So you have button, let's run this again. You have button 1, 4, 7, 2, 5, 8, and 3, 6, 9. So then that just checks that. It is essentially the same. So again, for me to go through all of this would be pretty redundant. The only difference is in the diagonals, where there's only 2 of these functions here. There's only 2, because obviously you can only go one or the other. But yeah, quickly, buttons 1, 1, 4, 1, 4, 7, X, O, add 1 to either. Should I win or should I block? If it's blank, block. If it's blank, win. If I blocked him, go to the next move. Otherwise, check column 2. Same thing, we check column 2. X, O, add 1 to the either. Should I win? Should I block? And then from there, block, hit return. Now it's my move. Actually, that actually might be my problem right there, now that I'm looking at it. So this should be outside of the loop, if I'm correct. So this one should be there, if I remember. If I'm correct, I think that's how I did it for the other ones, but I'll double check. Yeah, that is how I did it. So that's actually probably why column is not working that great. So hopefully that fixed it. But the same thing, it's all the same. The computer is pretty redundant. Not redundant, that's the wrong word. It is, I don't know the word for it. I'm losing my mind here. You know what it does. It checks all 3, compares it from there on out. And then the same thing, we move on to diagonals, which we still call in buttons. Print diagonal to let me know we're doing diagonals. And there's only 2 this time, because you can only do 1, 5, 9, or 3, 5, 7. So there's only 2 of those loops at time. So 4 button in diagonal 1, check 1, 5, 9. Take account of what's there. Should I win? Should I block? If nothing, pass, go to diagonal 2, check that. And after all of those checks, if none of these parameters from this whole loop, well, I want to call this whole loop, these 3 functions don't hit, to just move on to a random choice, because now there's no point in choosing one of those. We got to place something on the map and take it from there, as you would in a real tic-tac-toe game. So this one's pretty straightforward. It's just a pretty decent sized if-else statement. Um, Make a variable called choice and pick a numbers 1 through 9, buttons 1 through 9, essentially. So if the choice is equal to 1 and the button is blank, go there. If choice is 2 and the button's blank, go there. If the choice is 3 and blank, go there. Essentially, it's the same thing all the way down. If none of these hit, so it can't make a choice, run it again. Make a different number, and then eventually land at a spot that's open. I already went through the win check, so it compares if I have any of full rows, columns, or diagonals. If it ties up and no one makes anything, if I get to 5 moves and no one's won, the winner is equal to no one, message box, game record. That's the computer move, and then that's the player move if something glitches up, which, again, I might remove. I might just make this just else, because then click is still technically rated as false, so just go to comp row. If I win, display, message box, show info, tic-tac-toe, you have won. The winner is me, so player. Go to game record and take the parameter player with it. Same thing for computer, but you have lost this time. So display the box. The winner is not the computer. Game record is computer. Computer. And here is where we output that text file. So it's called game record. It pulls those parameters, whether it's considered no one, player, or computer. There's a folder named game recordings. That's actually, you can see right there. So that's good. I'll show that in a second. So it'll say, hey, is this folder here? If it's not here, make the folder, and I'll demonstrate that too. If the folder does exist, just go over and just say, hey, that folder already exists. So, and then just touch new lines for each. So we're going to set a variable called time. Oh, come on. Variable called time, and that's just that current time. So it'll get me the date and the time. And then I'm going to just reformat it, call it file time. So this is the name of the file, essentially. This will reformat it so that I have the year, the month, day, and then I have the hour, the minute, the second. What's nice about including that second too is that if you run multiple games in the same minute, it doesn't overwrite a file. It just creates a new one because you're not going to do a whole game in a second. And then what we'll do is we will create the file and we'll open it into the OS. This is where the import OS actually comes into. Find the file, which this parameter here, can I actually show the parameter for this? No, usually you can with PyCharm sometimes, but this parameter here is I'm using a relative path of game recordings. So go to that file, in there, paste this file .text, so it shows up as a notepad file, and then just W to write a file. The recording of it is going to say line 1, what is the text, and then it adds a little bar, which is pretty cool. Well, not cool, but it adds the bar to separate it so you can kind of see the difference. There's a new line for each. And then what happens is we go to file.write, so this guy here, write line 1, which let's say this is XXO, write that, and then print a bar to separate line 1 from line 2. Write line 2, so let's say this is OOX, and then file write again, put another line there, and then file write 3, which is, let's just say blank XO. Writes that, and then prints 2 new lines so that it doesn't get in the way, and then it's winner. So winner could be, again, player, computer, or no one. So for example, let's run a game. Let's do this real quick. Oh, it still glitches out. So yeah, you just saw the column glitch out again. So definitely column 2 is the issue. And since column 2 is the issue, I actually made an extra move as well. Because again, plays is 5, and I have 5 plays here, where the computer technically should have went there. But regardless, I want to debug it before I pass it in, but we are running a time for finals. So let's see, where is this one? I want to know. So this is on temp. No. Oh, this is the desktop one. Pretty sure. Yeah, game recordings, which we just did one today at 11:25. So remember, this one was a tie. So we open this one. Here's our grid. So there's the move that the computer didn't make because of the glitch. There's the 5 moves there that you can see. So you can actually see that this is identical. And since it was considered a tie, no one won. So I'll run it again, and I'll clear this. I'll clear this folder this time. I'll actually delete the folder too to show you that it actually does create it. So let's delete that. Oh, it's technically open, which shouldn't be open anymore. Or is it open because I have this up? Probably. No, that's also an older version of it. There we go. All right, so now there's no more game recordings file. So run this. Oh yeah, it's in PyCharm. And then we should see it appear right there. So run this. We'll play a game. Let's just see what happens. I don't care if I win or lose or tie. So there we go. Then you can see the game recordings file has been created. Our file just popped up here. And there's our game. And as you can see again, it's a match. So I did get the file output for it. Again, no one won. I want to try and get it either a loss or a win, just to show you that the output can be different. So let's just try and win really fast, which this computer is kind of a pain in the ass. But that's what I built it to be. I mean, you wouldn't let anyone win on purpose in tic-tac-toe, which that time I did win. So there was a glitch there. So yeah, column 2 is glitched up. So I got to look at that because, again, I made 2 moves. The computer didn't see it, made a random move, and went up here. But I did win this time. So then the new game, which the most recent was this one, player 1. So you can see that it does output something different every time. And then I guess really quick, you mentioned something about interacting. Let's see, demo must show running with user interaction. I think I've already done that, but I wanted to show you that debug, which is really nice about PyCharm. So up here in the first row, I created breakpoints. So when the program hits this point, it's going to stop and take it line by line, and then I can read any parameters that it builds, which you'll see in a second. So let's say I'm going to go row 1. So it stops at computer. It's going to go through. It's going to print my row right there. It's going to set my click to true, list, 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 which you can actually see it's now populated up here. And then it's going to create my variables. And this one is just over here. It kind of goes outside of the comments, which is weird. And then the next one is it goes into row 1. So it's going to check, hey, for object button number 1, is it an X? It is an X because I put it right there in button 1. So then it adds 1 to here, so you can actually see. I don't know if you can see it because of the resolution, but right here it says row 1 count X equals integer 0. I'm about to add 1 to it, and now it's populated as 1. So it counted that. Then it checks again. Now we're on button 2. You can see it in orange right here. I can't really highlight it. Checks it. It wasn't an X. It wasn't an O. So go back. Check button 3. Is it an X? No, there's nothing there. Is there an O? No, there's nothing there. Skip. Alright, so then it completes that loop. Determines should I win or should I lose? Or should I lose? Should I block? So it says row 1 count equals 0 is false because I have an X in button 1. Row 1 count, or row 1 count O, is also false because the computer does not have 2 O's. So skip this one. Check again. There 2 X's here. It's going to say Boolean follows. So it is not there. Is there any O's here? True. So this is true, but this is false, and it's an AND statement. So both have to be correct for it to go. Correct, or I'd say parameters need to be met. So I'm not going to block either. So I'm going to go ahead and pass. I'm going to go to button 2, or row 2. Check it again. I don't have a breakpoint here, so you can't actually see the variables, but you can see the computer looping through it. So it's checking again for row 2, which no one's made a move yet, so it's going to skip all this. I'm just going to run through. It's going to check row 3. Go to columns. There's nothing in. Actually, why did it go from columns to here? It goes back to comp row. Yeah, that's the point. At this point, I think I gotta set more breakpoints because I'm not used to the debugging in this yet, but I know it enough that I could at least demonstrate how the computer thinks using that debug there. As far as I know, have I met everything? Besides instructions, the video, submit some project demonstration presentation. So looks like I'm going to be uploading it to YouTube, which I do have an account, and then I'll just forward it over to you. So I met that line by line. Look at your code purposes and program running with user interaction. Okay, so it looks like I met the parameters for the video. I hope that's it. But either way, take care. Hope you enjoy your Christmas and have a good one.